when you're exiting the company that has been your life, your lifeblood, your identity, sometimes for decades, that crash, if there's not a plan and an understanding of how you're going to live life on the other side that continues to keep you motivated and fulfilled, that crash can be devastating sometimes.
Her first appearance sparked a conversation many founders are not prepared for. Not about selling a business, but about who you become when the business is no longer there. As a board-certified geriatric pharmacist and co-founder of Propel Comprehensive Wellness, Dr. Fritsch introduced a powerful truth. Most exits are financially planned, but personally unprepared. Propel your wellness. Today, she returns to go deeper into exit readiness, the biological cost of stress, why burnout is not a mindset failure, and how health, wealth, and purpose must be planned together to avoid losing momentum after the exit. This conversation is not about aging. It is about building a life that still works when the business no longer defines you.
There's a difference between staying busy and living with real, fulfilling purpose.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Your N.E.X.T. I'm your host, Jerome, and I've got my friend Michelle back with me, which is rare to have somebody back so soon. But things went so well and have been going so well with Michelle. We have decided to partner on an event on February 4th, 2026 in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Pearl District. And we wanted to get together today to come and tell you a little bit more on why we decided to do that. Michelle, thanks for hanging out with me. So good to see you.
Jerome, I'm so excited about this event and always wonderful to get to hang with you.
So we're calling this the Exit Ready Summit, and we're calling this episode Why Smart Founders Still Struggle with After the Exit. And I think so many people out there have been questioning, should I exit now? Is the time right? They're looking at the economy and they're wondering, hey, if I exit now, what am I going to do? If I exit now, am I going to get the value for my business? But what I don't think most people are asking is, if I exit now, who will I be without the business? And for me, that's the most important question that people should answer before they exit. And I know they'll say, well, I can't actually know who I'll be if I'm not in this situation. But I think having clarity gives you a big edge when you're moving through the portal of transformation that exits bring. And so when we started thinking about this event, or at least when I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, we're going to get a huge conference room. And we're going to put hundreds of people in it. And we're going to have the stage. And Michelle was like, Jerome, I don't know. And the more that we talked about it, and then we started finding space. And Michelle, talk about the space because you found this amazing space, and it has really drove a lot of decisions that we've made around the event as we've kind of continued down this journey.
It has. Charlotte as a city has always been known primarily as a banking city. And there's a very big movement right now to also let Charlotte be known for an innovation city, in particular around health tech. And massive amounts of support have gone into building something called the Pearl District, which is just south of uptown Charlotte itself. And it is an innovative area where there's a new medical school that's a collaboration between Wake Forest and Atrium Health. But it's also, ERCAD is going to be the only training site in North America to teach surgeons to do robotic surgeries. And there's going to be there is a space called Wexford Connects Labs. And this is a space where it's sort of a startup space with some shared lab spaces for health tech startups. Some of those are being started by some of the physicians that are working with the medical school, and there's all sorts of other innovations. You just feel the energy when you walk into a space like that. Everything absolutely state of the art. It just opened in the last few weeks, and we get to be there for our events.
Wow. And so you saw the auditorium, but then you found a boardroom, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this boardroom, and we said, you know what? We don't want to do what everybody else does. We don't just want to talk about the transaction from the front of a ballroom. We want to talk about the person at the boardroom table. And I, for one, think this puts us in a space where people actually can sit across from peers and meet with folks who actually understand what they're going to go through and have an opportunity to plan the exit. Michelle, I know that you have this really cool tool that we're going to open the day with. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This is such a personal transition. And I think a boardroom and a quieter, more intimate setting allows us to get to that much more effectively. And the tool we will start with is called the Core 7 Index, which helps us personally assess where are we in a core 7 elements of our life. What is our current understanding of our foundation, our purpose, our values, who we are as our identity as a person, our clarity about the future, the depth and quality of our relationships and the preparedness of those, the support network we have, our willingness to use it, our capacity, our momentum, are we feeling seen? When those things are high, we're ready for these really big decisions. And when they're not, we're probably not quite ready. So we'll just start with that assessment and we'll build from there.
Wow. You know, I think the exit reveals problems, it doesn't create them. And so people out there who think they might be exit ready because they're ready to retire or they're burned out or think
Mhm.
the money's going to fix some things for them, they might say, "Oh, well, I don't need this stuff." The fact of the matter is, when you remove the business, it takes all the structure that's been holding everything together with it. And
Right.
so our goal is to help you create the structure independent of the business so that you understand what you're stepping into. A healthy exit is one where the founder's ready, the financial situation is ready, and the business is ready to exit. Most people only do the last two. They worry about their financial numbers being hit and the business being ready. We're saying that you your personal readiness is extremely important. And so the Core 7 Index is a tool that we're going to use to help you get clarity on the spaces that you have vulnerability. And I think so many people out there are like, well, what if I don't want to know? What if I just want to walk into it? If you take that approach, I would suggest that you're underestimating the transition. And our goal is to make sure that you won't be blindsided. So, Michelle, I think there's a myth of readiness. And our goal is to create the discomfort without the fear related to the
Yeah.
exit so that the founders can be seen. And, many people will say, oh, well, I don't want to be seen. I just want to be in the background. I don't want it to be about me. But this is one of those spaces where it has to be about you, I think. I mean, would you agree with that?
I would, because you are almost being pulled into 2 or 3 different places at the same time. You're running the business, you're preparing the business, and you're preparing yourself. That can't be taken too lightly because too many things are relying on doing this effectively.
So I think most people would also say that they're going to exit on their timeline.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, over 50% of exits are involuntary. We talk about the 3Ds and the B. So divorce, divorce, disease, disability, and
Mhm.
burnout. These
And mental
things,
health fits in all of that, yeah.
it's all of them, right? It's
Mhm.
all of them, whether it's the health of the relationship or health of the person. And so people are being forced out of their companies, which means they're typically not exiting on their timeline. And we bring this up because I think folks will say, oh, well, I don't plan on exiting for 10 years. I don't need to worry about that. But exit planning is just good business. And the more valuable, if you want your business to be more valuable, having an exit plan in place allows that to happen. Typically, we see that high performers are the ones that are least prepared because they feel like everything's going to work out, everything's okay, and everything's going to go to plan. And while it may have up to this point, I think it's the biggest risk that you have. And it's the one that can be totally prepared for. Like, we all know that 100% of founders or business owners exit. Sometimes people want to argue about that, but the reality is 100% of owners exit. So if you don't have a exit readiness plan put together, I think you put yourself in a situation where you're leaving other people to clean up the mess if you become incapacitated.
That's a good point. Not only your business partners and the clients that you served, but your family as well. Without a solid plan and something happens unexpectedly, it's very difficult to navigate that for all the people who have to now step up and pick up the pieces.
Now, Michelle, do you find burnout to be a biological signal instead of mindset?
Tiny bit of background. So I'm a clinician who's practiced in primary care geriatrics for a long time at this point. And I left all of that because of what I was seeing, which gets straight to what you're talking about. I find that founders and other owners, especially as they're nearing this time of transition, they kind of put it on overdrive. And they are like, I just have to push for a while to get everything done, running the business by day, preparing it for exit by evening, more time away from family, often with high levels of stress, and walking away from that, like giving themselves a break less and less frequently, and sleeping. Sleep gets robbed every time. Getting up earlier in the morning, staying up later at night to get it all done. And I don't think there's a full understanding of the physiologic effects of that, the mental health effects of that. You can't do that without having some negative outcomes.
Mm. And so, does that tie into adaptive resilience?
Very much so. Very much so. That so many different pieces, but that clarity of the future and where you're headed rather than the unknown, the using the advisors around you and working collaboratively with others rather than thinking you have to do it all yourself. All of those pieces definitely tie into that.
Mm. So, one quote that I've heard that I thought was pretty cool is you don't feel the cost of stress until the structure disappears. I've watched people who have been physicians help them leave practicing medicine to move in a space that wasn't tied to insurance dictating how they rendered care. And you see like this weight just fall off of them and this release of only thing that I can call it is stress. And then they show up and they're brighter and they're more full and they're excited about the thing instead of feeling like and looking like they're being ground into the dirt. And I just wonder if founders are doing that and beginning to resent the company that they bought or built and questioning whether or not they're making a difference or if their impact is something that is meaningful in the way that they dreamed of it when they started on this path. The ability to push through serves folks well at certain points, but I
Mhm.
question whether or not it is creating a situation where they aren't actually prepared to walk in their fullness and impact the way that they can because they don't have the proper rest and they don't have the support that they need in the space to move through the challenges that they're handling.
And back to decision making, we just don't make our best decisions where we're considering all of the options when we're not well rested. We don't necessarily see that or feel that. It's often seen better by the people around us because we think we're doing fine. We think that we're pushing through. but we're not in our best place. We're not able to find the best solutions, the best path forward when we haven't allowed our brain to have time to re-energize itself during the night and be at our best cognitive capacity.
So let's continue down this vein of health because I think the event has three main categories or three main topics that we want to cover. And health is the top one because I think it has the biggest impact on the quality of life. Wealth would be the next one, and then purpose. And so we've talked about health some, but can we talk a little bit about the cognitive fog that happens post exit?
Yeah, even though you think you're prepared for it, most of the emphasis that I see and a lot of founders is on the tying up loose ends, getting across the finish line of the exit. And then assumptions are made that after that, freedom, peace, all of the things that they're looking for. But instead, what I often see, and the reason that I left my career to pursue this, is the number of people who aren't sure who they are anymore. They lose that sense of relevance. There's no longer a day's list of events, problems to be solved, fires to put out, meetings to be had. Without that structure and without that sense that people are relying on you, people can get lost. I don't know who I am anymore. The word that I have heard repeatedly over the years is relevance. I'm not sure any longer what is my relevance. And that can lead to a really negative state of mind. You no longer feel seen. You lose all of that momentum, and that downward spiral can hit suddenly and unexpectedly.
That's uncomfortable. Right? The thought that you could end up in a tailspin and not come back out. We see that personally for the founder, but we also see that with the relationships that are closest to them. Right? I think owners tend to have, once they exit, right, newly exited operators, the divorce rate tends to jump pretty dramatically. And I don't know the exact numbers. I'm not sure that you do it either, but like divorce rates spike on the backside of exits, right?
The last data I've seen was from 2005 to 2015, that at that time of life, it was an exponential increase in divorce rates. I've not seen the data for the last decade, but between COVID and the larger number of people exiting their business, the anecdotal evidence is it's just continued to rise significantly.
Now, there are some people out there who will say, look, as long as I get enough money, and this is segueing us into the wealth section, but as long as I got enough money, I'll be okay. And I tend to pick with folks and say, well, you're trying to solve post exit problems with pre exit thinking, but enough money doesn't replace your identity. And I love that you add on and it doesn't assure your health. Can we talk about that a little bit?
We can, even when people have accumulated significant wealth and they're chasing longevity, they're often focused on that physical health. So if I exercise enough, if I pursue, stem cell replacement or whatever kind of thing, then I will be healthy because I can afford the latest, greatest things that have been shown to help me live longer. But there's that physical health, but there's so much more to it. That social health, who are going to be the key people in your life? And are you ready for all the emotional highs and lows? And do you know how to navigate that and the stress that comes with it? So health is so much deeper than just what you look like and how fast you can run a mile. And I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Mhm. So it's funny. I was talking to my coach that I work out with pretty much every day. And I was like, health doesn't have a look. Like, there was a guy in his mid 50s who passed away last year that we worked out with. And he was shredded. I mean, there were muscles everywhere. He had 8 pack and like, but he died from a heart thing. Literally, like, I think his aorta ripped or something along those. And then there will be people who show up and they'll get their heart rate measured or monitored, and their resting heart rate will be lower than somebody who just seems super strong, and their stress levels are lower. And it's just like, how in the world do you know if you're actually healthy? And I think there's just so many things, but what I can offer to you is it is not because of a certain look. It's not because your clothes fit a certain way. It's part
Right.
of it, but it is not the entire conversation. And so, as we start talking about wealth or prosperity, as I like to call it, I think about time, talent, and the treasure. And so, what we see in other events is just an over focus on treasure, money, money, money. And I think it's lazy. I think it's the easy way to measure things, right? But you have these talents that if you don't have a place to put them, they atrophy. And in addition to them atrophying, I think you feel less relevant. Begin to feel, in some instances, worthless because you're not using your talent for good. And then there's this time thing that I think so many people overestimate the importance of being able to have a great place to allocate or invest that, right? It's your only non renewable resource. And to be in a space or a place where you don't have anything to do and you don't know what to do with the time that you have, that abundance can create a space for really negative things that happen where you're having or creating collateral damage just because you have a resource and that's really powerful and you don't have a plan for how to use it. When you think about wealth or prosperity through your lens, Michelle, what do you think?
The first thing that comes to mind, and we're going to get into this in a minute more, but there's a difference between staying busy and living with real fulfilling purpose. And I've seen a number of people who've accumulated great wealth. They've worked hard for that, but then they focus on staying busy, going places, doing certain fun activities and hobbies. And for a while, that might feel fulfilling, but what I see is over time, when you think about another decade or 2 decades or 3 decades doing the same busyness activities, that doesn't lead to the same kind of long-term quality of life as using your time and your talents in new ways to impact others. Because when we do, and again, we're going to talk more about this, but that almost has a boomerang effect that comes back and brings that fulfillment that really makes us excited about the decades to come.
Yeah. And I guess this is a good place to transition into the third prong of the event, which is purpose. And so we see the founder's exit paradox show up over and over and over again when people have liquidity events, especially if they're 8 or 9 figures. And that identity vacuum where they see what they've spent the last 15 to 50 years separating from them and much of their identity leaving with it and them not having something that they're exiting to, creating this space where there is just this void and it just feels like the life is leaving them. So you talked about that busyness, and I think about it as rebuilding pressure. It's just like, ooh, how can I put myself in a situation so that I can feel again? Like, how can I feel the stress of having to perform? Because, I've thrived in those conditions. People are like, oh man, I'm best under pressure and blah, 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 blah. I don't think that that was the point of the exit. I don't think the point of the exit was to be in a space where you're under stress and under pressure again. But maybe that is all people know, and so they have to create that. What do you think?
The thing that's making me think about is imagine times in your life when you've had something big to get through, a big final exam period back in college, or an audit, a big audit of your company, and all of your energy went into that. Afterwards, people are very likely to get sick. Suddenly, that adrenaline falls, that immune system is sort of worn out from the event that happened. And so your susceptibility to a cold or COVID or whatever goes way up. Have you ever seen that, Jerome, or is it just me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Think about that on a much larger scale when you're exiting the company that has been your life, your lifeblood, your identity, sometimes for decades. That crash, if there's not a plan and an understanding of how you're going to live life on the other side that continues to keep you motivated and fulfilled, that crash can be devastating sometimes.
Yeah, I liken it to a head-on collision,
Yeah.
right? And things break, especially if you don't have a seatbelt on it. And so we see exit readiness as a seatbelt for that collision that is going to come. And we find that the guard is down when people exit. And so that ends up being the most dangerous time. It's that time right after the win. And so being able to prepare yourself prior to experiencing these things, we believe is the most efficient way and most effective way to handle it. I watch so many people say, oh, well, I'll wait until I experience it because I don't even know if I'll experience. Time and time again, it's very clear that you are going to experience it because I don't find that founders who haven't come up with a personal readiness plan are actually prepared to exit. They aren't exit ready. So with that said, financial optimization is kind of the crux of just about every other exit readiness event that exists. And it backfires when you start thinking about human readiness more often than not. We decided to take a different approach. Do you think we're onto something, or because I see people give it lip service, right? I hear other exit strategists talk about, oh, yeah, this is so important, but I don't ever actually see them do anything about it.
Everyone knows that the word is important, that the concept is important. I think the difference is there are strategies, very well vetted, designed strategies to help you make these plans. You don't have to figure it out on your own. And very few people can pick what is going to be my purpose on the other side. I've decided that I'm going to do this without some real forethought into that process. And from my perspective, the number one thing that we're doing is keeping all of your options open for the future. If we don't plan and health gets in there and starts to decline, options start going out the window. If you no longer have the heart capacity to do the active things you wanted to do, if you fall into a depression that separates you and keeps you disengaged from life. I mean, that sounds deep and dark, but those are the things that I've seen happen too often without this important plan.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see people believe that a siloed approach actually works at an optimal level. So you got all these different experts optimizing their expertise,
Mhm.
leaving the founder who is ill equipped to handle the exit because more often than not, they've not been through the situation getting in a space where it's like, oh, well, that seems right. Or this person's more confident. It seems like they know what they're doing. And they're following guidance with no real perspective on what they need post exit because they haven't thought about what they're exiting to. They're
Mhm.
focused on what they're exiting from. And so, what we want to do is connect the space, right? When people go through that portal, they think it's just magical and they're immigrants to the land of wealth. And that is all that they actually think about is the wealth or the money. We were talking, you brought up the thought of a person that's faithful in the gym, but they ignore rest and how
Mhm.
that impacts their health. Can we pull that out a little bit and discuss that?
Health is so multifaceted. And when we think of the word, we're often thinking about the physical. So part of it is the look, and part of it is the sort of how are my numbers, my blood pressure, my blood sugar, some of those sorts of things. But it's so much more. And so, how do we manage the highs and lows of life and the sort of the chaos that's around us? What is our mental health? How mentally prepared are we for a major shift like this? Is that disillusionment likely to just take us over? Spiritual health is an element that people don't think about, but we're spiritual people, however we choose to live that. And then social health, especially during an exit, they're the people who fill your day when you are running a company. And many of those people will either stay with the company or travel their own exit journey and may not be as in your life as much as they were before. So, who are the relationships that will walk with you? Some of those are family and friends, and some of those might be people that you have yet to meet. But without some strategy, you can find yourself isolated so quickly. And that is the number one harbinger of a rapid negative decline. So let's not let that happen. Let's plan to avoid that.
Yeah, in the workshops that we've done for EO and Vistage and different keynotes, like when we poll the room, it never fails. 60% of the relationships that people spend the most time with vanish post
Hmm.
exit. And so if you imagine 3 out of the 5 people that you talk to on a regular basis not being the people that you have access to, you can imagine how lonely that gets for the person that's experiencing what many people would consider one of the best experiences of their lives.
Should
So,
be. Yeah.
so we're having a boardroom conversation that founders don't normally get to have, right? They and I pick a lot with people who go to big groups, right? The mega churches of conferences, whatever you want to call it. I say they go there to hide, right? They go there because they want to say that they're working, but they don't actually want to be seen by the people that they're working with. And so it's my belief that our approach allows them to do work that can't be done with a keynote, a webinar, or seminar. Like we're putting them in a room where there's no place to hide and they get to have the conversations with people that they know, like, and trust so that they can actually have the honest self reflection necessary to identify the issues that they have before they get to the space where it is the only thing that they can focus on. Would you agree in your experience that founders or owners are private?
Oh, very much so. And the thought of being transparent can be very difficult, which is why the Core 7 index kind of eases us into that, and why this more, I keep using the word intimate, but a boardroom setting is more appropriate. Drawing from adult education, I've been a professor all my life. We know that there's a certain type of learning that happens when it's all knowledge based. So when people go to these large conferences, it's knowledge based. You're just hearing information. You're not engaging with it that much. You're hearing it, you're absorbing it. And most of us have great intentions. And when we leave, we don't follow through. That information's just gone. This is different. When it's more of a personal development, a workshop kind of environment where you're learning, but you're also applying, you're making very strategic decisions that you will apply later, completely different experience and much more valuable.
I don't know that it's fair, but I'll ask you anyway. What do you think founders admit only in private?
In my experience, the things that we end up talking about, as we get to know each other and trust builds, are the strength of the relationships that they are going toward, and maybe worries about how much those have been ignored or assumptions have been made. And now the reality of that is starting to hit. And another one is often great leaders live in a world of control. So at the helm of a company, they can control so many of the things going around them. They have the final say in decisions. It's harder to control your personal life to that degree. So when you're at the office 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you don't have to worry about that as much. But when you're now going into that as your full-time occupation of sorts, and you realize how many elements of that are going to require a different kind of collaboration and not full-on control, that can be really terrifying because you don't have the skill set to navigate that.
Wow. 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 So I don't know which one you want to take. So I'll give you the option.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about who this event isn't for, or who you think will benefit the most from it?
I'm going to go with who would benefit the most.
Okay, tell me about
Is that
that.
all right?
Yeah.
So I really think that is, really great people, extremely smart people. They've built and grown tremendous businesses. They're doing it for all the right reasons and they've had a tremendous impact on everybody that's been, not only the employees and the team that they've built, but all of their clients that depending on what they do as a business, all the impact that having that business available in society has had helped a lot of people. And now they're entering a whole new time, and so much of their effort and their thought process is being consumed with the potential exit on the business side. They're really not taking time for their personal planning. And maybe this webinar is the first time they've even heard how important that is. Those are the people I would love to have in the room because they're going to walk out with so much more confidence on that aspect of the planning. And I believe that will have lasting impact for them and their families.
Yeah. And if I go into who it's not for, I would say it's for the person who's got it all figured out. If you have all the answers and you know everything about your exit and you don't need to figure out who you are and what you're about without the business, this event isn't for you. If you're scared to talk about yourself and your experiences and the things that you're scared about, this event isn't for you. If you are somebody who judges people because they question things and meaning and impact outside of how much money's in the bank account, how much revenue they did last year, and the head count of the people that work for them, it's not for you. And if you're somebody who's going to continue to introduce yourself as a person who was the founder or the owner of the previous business that you sold, this isn't for you. This space is for those who are looking for an opportunity to be vulnerable, transparent, and open with the things that they're concerned about so that they can actually get the support that they need. Readiness is a choice. And what we've realized most recently is that those who exit when they're not ready experience trauma. It is a traumatic experience. And if you're okay with creating a situation where you can be exposed to trauma, okay with that for you because there's nothing that we can do to make you do something different. We know that the best exits are intentional. We
Mhm.
also know that preparation is optional. Unfortunately, the consequences aren't. And so, for the people that want to mitigate the negative consequences of their exit by preparing, because if you think about exit readiness as most people do as it relates to their health, like an ounce of preparation
Mm.
reduces pounds and pounds and pounds of consequences on the backside. This isn't for everybody. This is for the people who want to get it right. And Michelle and I can get you to a space and a place where you can exit with confidence and you can exit with clarity. And so you may be wondering, because we've been talking for about 30 minutes now, maybe 35 minutes. Hey, what is the event? What's happening? Michelle, I'd love if you're okay introducing it. And I know we've talked about the date being February 4th, and we talked about the wonderful location that we've secured. I know it's for about 10 folks, but can we talk a little bit more about what you think about the event?
We're doing this for all the reasons that we've just talked about, that we've seen so many great people not do this part of the planning, and then what could have been some of the best decades of life afterwards being derailed due to the lack of planning. So this is for you. We're going to be in that boardroom setting in this very innovative space. It's going to be a relaxed workshop kind of environment. We will not be talking at you. This will be the kind of opportunity where we're talking with you. You'll have tools. You'll have time to think and apply it to your own exit readiness. And it will be a place where, because of the space we're in, you will have opportunities to see the innovation that's there. You'll have some private tours. You'll get to meet some of the new owners who are starting these health tech startups and see the inspiration and innovation around that, which, and for me anyway, I always just feel so energized and hopeful in that kind of space. We'll have lunch in a space that overlooks the next phases of this huge project in Charlotte. So you'll be on the inside and know what's coming next and to kind of see those spaces being prepared for the next buildings that will be part of this entire innovation. So you'll be doing your own planning, but also as a successful business owner, see the many ways that your skills and the things that drive you can have huge impact far into the future, depending on the decisions you make about how you want to use your best self moving forward.
Yeah, we built this boardroom because we kept seeing the same regrets show up over and over again. It's like, hey, if we see this pattern, this is likely preventable. See, most founders discover the blind spots that we're going to cover at the Exit Ready Summit after the deal.
Yes.
And there's room to surface these things beforehand so that you don't have to experience that pain unnecessarily. So, 10 seats, one day, one boardroom, February 4th at the Pearl in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you want to find out more, go to exitreadysummit.com. There, you'll get all the details. And you may be asking, well, hey, Jerome, if I could just say one thing that I would get from this, what would it be? And I would say, you're going to get exit ready. And if you don't know what that is, then you absolutely need to investigate further, because what we find is that most people have at best limited readiness. And that is because we've identified with our exit readiness summit, with our exit readiness assessment, which is a pre-summit tool, we can identify the 7 areas where you have the biggest opportunities or have any opportunity in order to better position yourself for a successful exit. And so exitreadysummit.com is where you can go to find out the details about our boardroom. Michelle, as we close out, any thoughts that you would like to leave our listeners with?
If you're somebody who likes to avoid, I could have, I should have, I would have, if I'd only known, this is for you.
Wow. Well, with that said, exitreadysummit.com is a place to go. If you're even thinking about an exit in the next few years, this is the conversation that you should show up for. Until the next time, your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.